There we all are. You can't beat a bit of good old Matthew Henry.
Respect.
Okay, these are some of the books I'm in the middle, or reading at the moment. Who do I particularly like? Oh, let me pull some out of here. Okay, I have to pull this out because he's my friend. Living the Cross-Centered Life, C.J. Mahaney. I think this is a great book. He's done, obviously there's a few, The Cross-Centered Life, Living the Cross-Centered Life, Humility, so there's some of C.J.'s.
Why should I read that?
Why should you
read that?
I have read that,
actually, I know, but...
Well, because
I got given a free copy of that.
I think it's just a simple, straightforward book about what it's all about. I mean, so whatever else your life's all about, it's got to be about keeping everything central. It defines us, it's who we are. I think it defines the scriptures. So that's a simple way, that little book, that little one, there you are, Cross-Centered Life. I think it's just brilliant. Now, not just because CJ wrote it, I think it's brilliant.
Read it on my honeymoon.
Did you? Yeah. You should have read that on your honeymoon. Sex, Romance and the Glory of God.
Not the one I was given, so...
Okay, someone needs to help you. But then they're both good. Who else would I pull out? Encourage people to read. John Owen, particularly on Temptation Sim, Volume 6. This is a little version. I've got the big one up there. That's just a bit about John Owen. I love John Piper. This is one of his best books, Pleasures of God. Desiring God's probably his most important contribution, although he doesn't think so. But I do. And I think I have the Spirit of God. I'm only joking. But I think The Pleasures of God is just a delightful book. He goes to the scriptures looking at what does God take pleasure in and writes a chapter on each one. The pleasure of God in his son, the pleasure of God in bruising his son. So there's some things. Let's keep going around this way. This is my Spurgeon shelf.
Should we?
Like Spurgeon.
I love Mr. Spurgeon. I have a picture of him up here as well.
I noticed that when you were talking about him, Mr. Spurgeon, I kept on glancing.
I don't just have Spurgeon books. I mean, I have
Books about Spurgeon.
I have books signed by Mrs. Spurgeon when she sent them out. This is lectures to my students. She ran a book club and sent them out to different folks. So my friend Dave Harvey found this in Hay-on-Wye when I took him there, and I've been looking one for a while. So it's Mrs. Spurgeon saying that. No, you can't have it. And that I'm not prepared to serve you. I love Spurgeon. And he just fills my soul with grace. And so I thank God for him. And so I would encourage anybody who's in ministry, read Mr. Spurgeon regularly. What else have we got here? There's a few books by Jerry Bridges that we really like. Discipline of Grace, Transforming Grace, and Trusting God. If you want simple books that aren't complicated to read but get to the heart of some of these doctrines, Jerry Bridges is a great guy. I really enjoy him.
He's regularly quoted, isn't he, Jerry Bridges?
Yeah.
Lots of books.
Worked with the Navigators for many years. What have we got coming over here? Oh man, there's just so many books I could tell you. I'll try and break them down. Leadership books. Here's absolute musts. Crossing Christian Ministry by Don Carson. Nobody in ministry should not have read that book. You've got it, or is that a double negative? Read this book. This is a great, great book, as is Bridges' book on the Christian ministry.
Yeah.
Absolute must. So the old ones are best. If you're preaching, there's some great books on preaching. Christ-centered preaching by Chappell, Anointing Expositor preaching by Alford, and obviously the Sacred Anointing by Sargent. That's a great one. What else can I tell you? What else can I encourage you with? There's some of my Puritans. I love the Puritans.
It's a big thing in Sovereign Grace, isn't it?
Yeah, we love the Puritans.
Yeah.
We do love the Puritans. You know, the Puritans they just encapsulated, it was just one of our finest hours, the way they lived, and they get a bad press, but they were joyful. They did not take themselves seriously. They took the grace of God seriously. They took the cross seriously. I think they had a great understanding of sin. There's some excellent books. So if you can't read John Owen on sin, there's a great book, I don't know where it is, by Chris Lundgaard, called The Enemy Within. This is a fantastic book on the doctrine of sin. It doesn't make you miserable. It makes you joyful and amazed at grace, and helps you understand what makes you tick. And we encourage a lot of people to read this book. Fantastic book. It's John Owen for dummies. We have a bunch of friends that we know well that are all part of the CCEF, Christian Education Foundation or something, Christian counselling, and they're into biblical counselling. Guys like Paul Tripp, has written War of Words.
Is that the Instruments in the Redeemer's Hands?
Instruments in the Redeemer's Hands, Speaking the Truth in Love by Dave Powlison. Paul Tripp wrote Instrument in the Redeemer's Hands. These guys have just helped us in biblical counselling, so that it's not into psychobabble. It's got to be biblical, getting to the heart of things. These guys have just been brilliant in this. And we've had Paul out here. We've had all the guys who've been with the church here. Paul Tripp, Ted Tripp, and Dave Powlison have been great to us. What else can I take you through? First few chapters in that book are a must. Preach the gospel to yourself every day. Jerry Bridges is the man who says it. So that's wonderful. I could tell you so many others. Oh, Goldsworthy, I like biblical theology.
Yeah.
So encouraging people to get into biblical theology and read a lot on that. So we got some of those things. And here's some of the latest books I've just picked up to show you what I'm about to read. David Wells, The Courage to be Protestant. Truth Lovers, Marketeers and Emergence in the Postmodern World. I'm grateful for some of the stuff that's come out of the emerging church, but have some real problems, obviously, with some of the emergent stuff. So that's meant to be an interesting book. Al Mohler, Culture Shift. David Wells has forwarded that, but this is a book by two guys, Why We're Not Emergent, by two guys who should be. I'm halfway through that, which is quite interesting, quite well done. Fantastic book. Fantastic book. Pierce for Our Transgressions. It's like Christmas, isn't it? Advertising. We'd actually do this at Christmas. Go through. Don Carson on Christ and Culture. That was from Together for the Gospel the time before last, which is the message I put down. And I'm just going through that and getting my devotion, so that's why out. Again, brilliant book. In My Place Condemned, He Stood. It's Mark Dever, our friend Jim Packer, just focusing on the atonement, the need for the atonement. Bob Coughlin's new book, Worship Matters.
Tried to order those off you, but
You couldn't get them?
still waiting.
Oh, well, you can have that one.
I need 15.
You've got one, don't be greedy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
This is I haven't read it yet. Piper's Response to N.T. Wright. That's a great book. We've bought this for the whole church. We've given everybody a copy in the church. It's Mark Dever's book called The Gospel and Personal Evangelism, and so all the church have gone through in their home groups. Absolutely the best little book on just winning people and stirring ourselves up in that we've come across. And John MacArthur's new book, Gospel According to Jesus. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my pile. And then I've got another pile of books, these two here, that I'm working through. Some of those are the same, some are different. So,
How many hours a week do you spend reading?
not enough. This is a good book as well. There's a couple of things in there in chapter 5 I wouldn't necessarily agree with. But apart from that, To Give to an Unbeliever, a thinking, cynical unbeliever, Reason for God by Tim Keller, cracking. And we're going to follow up, we're going to do some of this stuff ourselves on Sunday morning called The Reason for God.
I find it very helpful.
You book reviewed that on your website, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a great book with some caveats.
Superb.
I think
Pete, that's brilliant.
Oh, you're welcome.
Before you
Thank you
shake his
very
hand, someone on the blog wanted you to comment on one book in particular called Young, Reformed and Restless.
I haven't read it.
Done.